In the video, we explore the role of the Bolsheviks in the events leading up to the October Revolution of 1917, including the July days and the attempted coup by General Kornilov. In 1903, during the Second Congress of the Marxist Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, a split occurred between radicals and moderates. The radical faction, led by Vladimir Ulyanov, better known as Lenin, secured the majority of votes and was called the Bolsheviks, from the Russian word meaning majority. The moderate faction, led by Julius Martov, was named the Mensheviks, from the Russian word for minority. The Bolsheviks played a relatively minor role in the 1905 revolution and constituted a minority in the St. Petersburg Council of Workers' Deputies. However, in the less significant Moscow Council, the Bolsheviks dominated. In 1912, they declared themselves an independent party under the name Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, Bolsheviks. Unofficially, the party was known as the Bolshevik Party. Unlike the Mensheviks, the Bolsheviks resorted to more radical measures to finance their activities, including bank robberies. The most notorious theft occurred in June 1907, when a group of Bolsheviks, led by Joseph Stalin, carried out an armed heist at the State Bank convoy transporting money, in Tiflis, the capital of Tiflis Governorate, present-day Georgia. After the Russian February Revolution, Bolshevik leader Vladimir Lenin was keen to return to Russia as swiftly as possible. However, he stayed isolated in neutral Switzerland while the First World War continued. The German government hoped that Lenin's return would trigger political unrest in Russia, leading to its capitulation and the end of its involvement in the war on the Entente's side. It allowed Lenin and his companions to travel safely by train through Germany. Having passed through Germany, Lenin continued his journey through Sweden and Finland, arriving in Petrograd on the 3rd of April 1917. After returning, Lenin wrote and published a series of 10 directives, known as the April Theses, calling on the Bolsheviks not to cooperate with the provisional government and to seize power. However, many members of the Central Committee of the Bolshevik Party believed that Lenin, who left Russia in the summer of 1900 and visited in 1905 and 1914, was detached from the country's political life. At the meeting of the Petrograd Party Central Committee, only 2 Bolsheviks supported Lenin's program from the April Theses. After the failure in the Petrograd Committee, Lenin began to agitate the workers in the Bolshevik committees formed in Petrograd's factories. Lenin's statements that only Bolshevik dominance in the councils of workers and soldiers' deputies could end Russia's participation in the First World War had a significant impact on workers. At the end of April 1917, during the 7th All-Russian Conference of the Bolshevik Party, Lenin's April Theses were approved by the majority of delegates. Thus, Lenin gained control over the Bolshevik Party. In May 1917, Lev Trotsky, better known as Trotsky, returned to Petrograd from the USA. Trotsky initially aligned with Martov's faction but soon distanced himself, and later, between 1904 and 1917, declared himself a non-factional social democrat. He was a key figure in the 1905 revolution, during which he was elected chairman of the Petersburg Council of Workers' Deputies. Upon returning to Russia in May 1917, Trotsky generally agreed with the Bolsheviks' position, but did not immediately join them. He later became an ally of Lenin and a member of the Bolshevik Party. Trotsky was a powerful orator who could interest diverse audiences, including workers and soldiers, with his speeches. Under pressure from the Entente allies to continue the war, Minister of War and Navy Alexander Kerensky launched what later became known as the Kerensky Offensive against the Austro-Hungarian and German Southern Army. The initially successful Russian offensive, which began on the 18th of June 1917, soon encountered strong resistance, and the Central Powers responded with a powerful counterattack. The Russian army retreated and suffered heavy losses, and numerous cases of desertion, sabotage, and mutiny demonstrated that it could no longer advance. On the evening of the 3rd of July, spontaneous armed protests by soldiers, sailors, and industrial workers, also known as the July Days, broke out in Petrograd, driven by dissatisfaction with Russia's ongoing involvement in the First World War. The authorities deployed troops against protesters, leading to numerous arrests and deaths. On the night of the 5th of July, a Bolshevik Central Committee meeting was held with Lenin present, where it was decided to cancel demonstrations in Petrograd's streets. As a result, armed protests ended on the 7th of July. Although the Bolsheviks' goals during the July days were somewhat unclear, the Bolshevik leadership, led by Lenin, refused to seize power. Overall, the violent nature of the July protests and the Bolsheviks' contentious involvement shifted public opinion against them. On the 8th of July 1917, Alexander Kerensky became prime minister, seeking to restore strong central government authority. The new provisional government of socialist revolutionaries and Mensheviks under Kerensky, in response to the July events, adopted a more conservative approach. It began taking measures to suppress civil unrest, including ordering the arrest of Bolshevik leaders for the violence during the July days. Lenin successfully hid in Finland. Many Bolshevik leaders, including Trotsky, were arrested. Street marches in Petrograd were temporarily banned, and the government ordered the closure of any press publications promoting military unrest. On the 12th of July, Kerensky reinstated the death penalty for mutiny, desertion, and disorderly conduct by soldiers on the Eastern Front. The Bolsheviks' power was temporarily weakened. The violent suppression of the demonstrations brought an end to the illusion of peaceful coexistence between the provisional government and the Petrograd Council of Workers' and Soldiers' Deputies. Immediately after the July days, Alexander Kerensky appointed General Lev Kornilov, the former commander of the Petrograd military district, as commander-in-chief of the Russian army. With the help of Russian army officers, including Kornilov, Kerensky aimed to establish a more unified and authoritarian form of government. In turn, Kornilov blamed the Petrograd Council for the recent collapse of the army and believed that the provisional government lacked the authority and confidence to dissolve it. After several ambiguous exchanges between Kornilov and Alexander Kerensky, Kornilov ordered troops to enter Petrograd to restore order. In response, the Petrograd Council established on the 28th of August 1917 the Committee for Combating Counter-Revolution, which was dominated by the Bolsheviks, including Lev Trotsky, who was released from prison to organize the defense of Petrograd. Additionally, the Petrograd Council of Workers' and Soldiers' Deputies received weapons and ammunition to resist Kornilov's army. The committee collaborated with the railway trade union, which blocked the railway lines to Petrograd. The committee also sent agitators into Kornilov's army to cause sabotage and incite soldiers to desert. As a result of the unrest, many soldiers deserted, and Kornilov lost control of his troops. After the failed coup, Kornilov was dismissed from his role as commander-in-chief and imprisoned in the Byhof fortress alongside 30 other army officers accused of involvement in the conspiracy. The Bolshevik Party benefited the most from the Kornilov revolt, with its support and strength increasing after the attempted coup. Receiving arms from the provisional government, even though they were not needed to repel Kornilov's advancing troops in August, led to the rearmament of the Bolshevik military organization and the Red Guard. These arms were later used in the successful armed coup of October 1917. Support for the Bolsheviks among the Russian population also increased after the Kornilov revolt, mainly due to dissatisfaction with the provisional government's response to Kornilov's attempt to seize power. The officer corps was outraged by Kornilov's arrest and by the provisional government's reconciliation with the Petrograd Council. Later, many officers ignored Kerensky's request to protect the government during the Bolshevik coup in October 1917. In September and October 1917, the confrontation occurred in Petrograd between two political forces, the provisional government, led by Kerensky, which lacked widespread popular and military backing, and the Petrograd Council, led by Trotsky, which commanded an armed Red Guard. In the following video, we explore the Bolshevik coup and the dictatorship that followed.